in a small village called Podbornoy in Russia's Pskov region. Within the span of just 1 year, every single resident disappeared. Everyone, except one retired woman. Police were genuinely shocked. There were no signs of violence, no evidence, no clear trail. So the question was simple and terrifying. What actually happened in that quiet, forgotten village in 2005? Today, I want to walk you through 3 unbelievable stories. These aren't long cases, but once you hear them, they stay with you. That's why I decided to bring all 3 into one video. And there's one question we should keep in mind the whole time. Who were the oldest serial killers? And how could they still take lives so easily at that age? Before we continue, just a quick reminder. Your likes and comments really do matter. They help support the work that goes into these videos. Alright, let's go back to Podbornoy, November 2005. At that point, only 6 houses in the village were still inhabited. One day, a woman walked into the local police station and reported her brother missing. His name was Vladimir Ivanov. He usually visited his sister in the nearby town a few times a month. But now, 5 weeks had passed, and no one had heard from him. His sister, Galina Ivanova, told police, "I called Vladimir's wife, Anna Kuzmina. She said he'd been gone for a month and a half. After a serious argument, he stormed out of the house. I called all our relatives. No one had seen him." Detectives headed to Podbornoy, a dying village, 6 houses, 2 of them already abandoned, meaning at most 5 people still lived there. Locals said Vladimir wasn't much of a drinker, but when he did drink, the fights with Anna got intense. According to them, after the last argument, Vladimir got angry, left Anna, and disappeared. Anna herself claimed he probably went to St. Petersburg, somewhere near Leningrad. She said he'd left to find work. Naturally, police filed a missing persons report. They ran checks, conducted searches, and the result? Nothing. No trace of Vladimir Ivanov. And this is where the story turns dark. 2 months passed. Vladimir was still missing. Then another report came in from the same village. This time, the missing person was Galina Semyonovna Volchakina, a 63-year-old retired woman. The man looking for her was Anton Seryogin, her former partner. He told police, "We lived together in another village. About a year ago, we had a fight, and Galia moved to Podbornoy. 2 weeks ago, she came to see me and said she was going to St. Petersburg to visit relatives. She gave me an address and a phone number. I went to walk her home, but when I got there, she was gone. The door was locked. Police looked into it. Yes, Galina really had been living in Podbornoy. And according to the locals, she left on her own, went to St. Petersburg. Even Anna Kuzmina backed up the story. She said she personally went with Galina to see her off. According to Anna, "We went to the store, bought some alcohol, then sat by the river for a little farewell drink. There were 5 of us. Basically everyone left in the village. We drank a bit, the men went home. I walked Galia to the bus stop and put her on the bus." At the time, police had no solid reason to doubt this story. But the truth was simple. Galina was never seen again. 1 month later, February, another disappearance. This time, the report came from a man named Sergei Yefimov from a neighboring village. He said his friend, Vladimir Schmidt, who lived in Podbornoy, had vanished. Yefimov described him in detail. Born in 1959, originally from Pushkinsky Gory, Pskov region. Worked as a tractor operator. Married once, divorced in 2000, then moved to Podbornoy. After the previous 2 disappearances, only 3 people were left connected to the village. Anna Kuzmina, Vladimir Schmidt, and a woman named Lyubov Baskakova, who only came on weekends and used her house as a summer place. Yefimov said that since mid-February, Vladimir Schmidt had completely disappeared. He went to check on him himself. The house was boarded up, the door nailed shut. 2 neighbors, by then almost the only ones left, told him, "Didn't you know? He went to St. Petersburg." But Yefimov didn't believe it, because his friend hadn't even said goodbye. 3 people, 3 disappearances, no evidence, no bodies, No explanation. Detectives were stuck. Every day, the village grew emptier. People were vanishing, one by one. Police still hoped it was all just coincidence, until one event changed everything. One day, in a pond near Podbornoy, locals found the body of a woman. She was identified quickly: Lyubov Alexandrovna Baskakova, the same woman everyone believed was still alive. Forensic experts examined the body and came to a clear conclusion. Cause of death: severe blunt force trauma to the head. In other words, she was murdered. An investigation began. Police learned that Baskakova only used the house in Podbornoy on weekends. Her real home was in St. Petersburg, where she lived with her daughter and son-in-law. When several days passed and she didn't return, her family grew worried. They asked a family friend who lived in a nearby village to go check on her. He went to the house. It was empty, so he went to the only neighbor left nearby, Anna Kuzmina. Anna seemed surprised and said, "Didn't you know? Lyubov Alexandrovna went to St. Petersburg. I saw her leave through the window." But the family friend was certain of one thing: Lyubov never made it back to St. Petersburg. He went to the exact spot Anna claimed was the last place she saw her. And that's where he found the body. From that moment on, there was no doubt anymore. The people who had disappeared from Podbornoy were almost certainly murdered. Only one question remained: who did it? When police looked into Baskakova's past, they found something strange. Back in 2001, this seemingly perfect mother and grandmother had stood trial. The reason: illegal poppy cultivation found on her land. For a moment, investigators wondered if her death was connected to her past. But there were no leads, no links, nothing concrete. And once again, the last person who had contact with Baskakova was the same neighbor as always: Anna Kuzmina. In theory, Anna could have been responsible. By that point, she was the only person from the village still alive. So police decided to dig into her background. And that's when the story turned truly dark. Anna Vasilievna Kuzmina, born in 1952, in Grozny. She spent years living with her mother in Kabardino-Balkaria. And in 1992, she was convicted of murder. The victim? Her own mother. Because Anna confessed, the court showed some leniency. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but after 6 years, she was released on parole. After that, she moved to the Pskov region, worked on a collective farm, and eventually settled in Podbornoy. The villagers had no idea about her past. Naturally, they weren't afraid of her. But when police pulled her old case from the archives and read through it, they were stunned. According to the records, before killing her mother, Anna had sold her apartment and quickly spent all the money. Her family accused her of stealing from them. Sometime later, they supposedly reconciled. But on the day of the murder, while Anna was standing in front of the mirror, getting ready, she noticed a heavy metal mortar on the table. She picked it up and used it to kill her mother. And now, Baskakova's murder followed the exact same pattern. A heavy blow to the head. There was still no direct evidence. But police obtained a search warrant and asked Anna to come clean, if there was anything to confess. Anna didn't hesitate. She sat down and started writing a confession. While officers searched the house, they noticed something on the wall. A calendar. It was from the previous year, and one date had a red X drawn across it. In the middle of her confession, Anna paused and said, "My husband died on that day." The detectives looked at each other, and the same thought crossed all of their minds. Did he really die? Or did you kill him too? And from that moment on, Anna's next confessions finally made everything clear. Right there, she admitted that the story of "my husband died" wasn't a natural death at all. She said it plainly. None of this started in November 2005. Kuzmina said it all actually started back in 2004. At the time, she was living with Vladimir Ivanov. At first, they were like any normal couple. They even called each other husband and wife, even though they were never legally married. In the beginning, things were fine. But over time, the arguments started. The usual kind, especially when Vladimir stayed out late or drank. One night, the fight escalated. For the first time, they slept in separate rooms. The next morning, Anna said, "I went to him, and right there, using the exact same method she had years earlier with her own mother, she attacked him from behind and killed him. After that, she did everything she could to make sure no trace was left." Different versions exist. Some say she burned the body in an iron stove. Others say she dragged it to a nearby swamp and dumped it there. But one thing is certain: Vladimir Ivanov was never found. Afterward, Anna returned home and marked the date on her calendar, so she would remember it every year. That red X investigators later noticed? It marked the day she killed him. "After my husband, I had no money, but the neighbors helped me." After Ivanov's death, Anna was essentially broke. But it was a small village. Everyone knew everyone. Neighbors helped her out. Some gave her money. Others brought food. Some just stopped by to make sure she was still alive. And through those visits, Anna grew close to Galina Semyonovna Volchykina, the retired woman who would later disappear. Anna said that in January, Galina had decided to go to St. Petersburg to visit relatives. The same story she had already told police. They went down to the river, had a few drinks as a farewell. Then Anna walked her to the bus stop. But the real version was very different. That day, Galina realized some of her money was missing, and she immediately suspected Anna. She accused her directly. Anna said that accusation pushed her over the edge. She went into the next room, came back with a piece of wire, a cable, and killed her right there. Then she hid the body so no one would ever find it. According to her confession, she concealed Galina's body in the basement. And the money? Yes, Anna had taken it. After that, it was Vladimir Schmidt. Sometime later, Vladimir Schmidt came to see Anna. He had likely heard rumors. People in the village were disappearing. He started asking questions. So what really happened to Ivanov? Did he actually leave? Anna said there was no argument, no shouting. She calmly went into the house and came back with a pot of boiled potatoes and a hammer. She offered him food, then casually said, "I need to hammer a nail into the fence. Can you help me?" Vladimir didn't sense any danger, and that moment of trust cost him his life. And the last victim, Lyubov Baskakova. She was the woman who came to the empty village on weekends to get some fresh air, tend her garden, then return to St. Petersburg. Anna said she was actually happy when Lyubov arrived. She was lonely, but slowly, a feeling crept in that Lyubov had started to suspect her too. The weekend ended. Lyubov prepared to leave. She walked out into the yard, not realizing Anna was following right behind her. According to the case file, Anna attacked her with a heavy object, possibly a brick. Lyubov was killed on the spot. Her body was found nearby, and from that moment on, police knew for sure these were not a series of unfortunate coincidences. Someone had been methodically, deliberately eliminating the residents of an entire village, one by one. When the case finally went to court, Anna Kuzmina was convicted as the primary perpetrator behind the murders. She was sentenced to 21 years in prison. What stood out was her attitude. Throughout the entire process, she showed almost no remorse. Under the original sentence, she was supposed to be released in 2027. That never happened. In 2019, Anna Kuzmina died in prison after a short illness. Now, we leave an empty village behind and move to a large city, Novosibirsk. March 2000. A man walked into a police station and said, "I found a bag of sugar in the trash near my building, but it's leaking blood." Police opened the bag and immediately realized they were dealing with something horrific. And that was only the beginning of a case that, by the late 1990s, had already terrified the entire city. Because body parts kept turning up by the river, in the woods, even near schools. Police were looking for someone with specialized skills. A surgeon, a butcher, pathologist, someone who knew exactly how to work with a human body. But in the end, the killer turned out to be an ordinary retiree who lived nearby, right next to the zoo. His name was Victor Fokin. In court, he shouted, "Dear judges, let me go. I won't do it again." At the same time, he genuinely believed he hadn't done anything wrong. He said, "I only killed bad, worthless women." On the surface, his life looked completely ordinary. He was born in a small town, average student, later moved to Novosibirsk and worked at a factory. He even received recognition as a veteran worker. He got married, had a daughter, then everything began to collapse. His wife died. He was left alone. He started drinking heavily. His health deteriorated. He suffered a stroke. Doctors told him to stop drinking. He didn't. There was another key detail in the case. Fokin had a severe fixation on sex. But at his age, and in his condition, women wanted nothing to do with him. Eventually, he became impotent, and that frustration turned into anger, then resentment. Later, investigators confirmed that his first proven murder took place in April 1999. His victims were almost always women no one would go looking for: homeless women, alcoholics, women living on the streets. His method rarely changed. He would approach them near the train station or on the street, lure them to his apartment with promises of food and alcohol, then attack. His final murder took place on March 5, 2000. That was the killing that led to the bloody bag being found in the trash, and finally pushed the case forward in a way police could no longer ignore. Police flooded the area. They searched hundreds of houses and thousands of apartments, set up surveillance, laid in wait, and eventually, they caught Fokin. By that point, according to the case file, he had killed 9 women. The victims ranged in age from 18 to 55. When police arrested him, they found a large number of women's belongings in his apartment. During interrogation, he spoke with the same cold stare and said, "These weren't people. They were a burden on society." Forensic experts noted signs of severe sexual deviance. But in the final official assessment, he was declared mentally competent and fully responsible for his actions. His trial took place in May 2001. Because he was 66 years old, Russian law did not allow for the death penalty. The prosecution asked for 20 years. Taking into account his age, poor health, and cooperation, the court sentenced him to 19 years in prison. And that was the end of it. Fokin didn't last long behind bars. In February 2003, just 2 years after the verdict, he died in prison at the age of 67 from cardiac arrest. Now we're going much further back in time to Romania, 1838. A girl is born into a wealthy family. Her name is Anna. From childhood, she's pampered, well-educated, and clearly intelligent. People later said she spoke 5 languages, had a solid understanding of medicine, and took chemistry seriously. As a young woman, she meets a handsome army officer. That man doesn't just ruin her life, he infects her with a sexually transmitted disease, and then disappears. From that point on, Anna develops a deep hatred toward men. But her family refuses to let her remain single. They force her into marriage. She gives birth to 2 children. Both die young. Some said it was because of the disease. Others believed that this was the moment, the dark turning point, when Anna began down a very different path. About 20 years later, her husband dies suddenly. The exact cause is never clearly recorded. And that matters, because after his death, Anna realizes something disturbing. Their money is gone. Their lifestyle is ruined. Her pride won't let her ask her family for help. So she takes matters into her own hands. She turns her home into a kind of laboratory, begins treating people, mixing remedies, and surprisingly, many of them actually improve. Word spreads. Her reputation grows. Soon, people give her a name, Baba Anushka, Grandmother Anushka. But then, the money starts coming in, and with it, greed. At first, she makes mixtures that help young men avoid military service. Some fall seriously ill. A few even die. Anna realizes this line of work is too risky, so she stops. Then one day, a woman comes to her. She complains about her husband, his affairs, his abuse. Anna offers her something simple. Just put a drop of this into his food. He won't chase other women anymore. And right there, the real business begins. She spreads rumors that she has supernatural powers. Some even say she sold her soul to create love potions. At night, women arrive at her house, heads covered, dressed in dark clothing, quietly so no one would notice. Anna hands each of them a small bottle and says, "Add a little to his soup. Mushroom soup works best. After that, your husband will calm down. He'll become gentle." And she wasn't lying. The husbands did become quiet, because slowly, they died. Some women believed it was magic. Others suspected the truth but chose not to think about it. After all, they were the ones who had poured it into the food. This went on for years, until Anna was 88 years old and made a mistake. A young girl, a relative of one of her customers, helped add the potion to a meal. Later, out of childish pride, she bragged about it to her friends. That loose tongue gave police the thread they needed to unravel everything. Once the case was opened, investigators realized this wasn't just rumor. On police desks, there were nearly 100 complaints of suspicious deaths. Through witness testimony and laboratory analysis, they reached a horrifying conclusion. Baba Anuchka may have poisoned more than 150 men. And that's only the cases they could trace. The mixtures contained small doses of arsenic, combined with herbal poisons. The low dosage was intentional. She didn't want to kill quickly, that would raise suspicion. Instead, death would come days, sometimes weeks later, blamed on food, illness, or bad mushrooms. Her trial took place in June 1929. The prosecutor demanded the death penalty. But in the end, because many of the final acts were carried out by the women themselves, Anna was convicted primarily as an accomplice. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. That wasn't the end. About 8 years later, she was released. She was 98 years old. She spent the rest of her life quietly on her own property and eventually died at the age of 100. So now the question is yours. Did they receive fair punishment? And out of these 3 stories, which one was the most terrifying?